Mr. Chairman, I yield myself such time as I may consume.
The gentleman is recognized.
Mr. Chairman, rather than bring up an immigration bill that attempts to secure our border or address the broken immigration system, the Republican majority has brought us a bill that would simply bankrupt states and localities that have chosen a different path on immigration than the Republican agenda. I'm not surprised that this bill offers no solutions, though. Republicans have made it very clear that they are more interested in trying to scapegoat immigrants and score cheap political points, especially in these weeks leading up to the election, than in working to solve problems. This legislation would prevent so-called sanctuary jurisdictions, in some cases entire states like New York and California and North Dakota, from receiving any federal funds that might, quote, benefit, unquote, undocumented immigrants, resulting in drastic cuts to education, transportation, law enforcement, and health care. This bill is being rushed to the floor without following regular order, and given how poorly written this bill is, it's clear why its supporters might have wanted it to shield it from greater scrutiny. The title of the bill implies that it is narrowly crafted and targeted at federal funds for undocumented immigrants in sanctuary jurisdictions. In reality, however, its impact would be much, much wider. It would target not only states led by Democrats like New York, California, and Illinois, but Republican strongholds like Utah and North Dakota, and its impact would be felt across the country. Let's think about how this bill would affect our communities. For example, local police protect the public. They do not check a person's immigration status when responding to a call for help or answering a 911 call. As a result, under this bill, state and local police forces will lose millions of dollars in burned JAG grants from the Department of Justice, one of the main ways that the federal government supports police equipment purchases, training, and officer salaries. Likewise, states are required by law to provide students with a K-12 public education, regardless of immigration status. As such, states receive billions of dollars from the Department of Education to fund K-12 education. Under this bill, any so-called sanctuary jurisdiction would lose this funding for all its students, regardless of their immigration status. And one more example that highlights how truly absurd this bill is. Last year, the federal government provided the states of California and New York, both of which are considered sanctuary jurisdictions under this bill, with $5 billion and $2.3 billion, respectively, to build and maintain highways, bridges, and pedestrian infrastructure. This funding benefits all of the state's residents, including undocumented immigrants, which puts the funding at risk under this bill. Now, my Republican colleagues will argue that we are reading the bill too broadly, but we know this is exactly what Republicans want to do. The Trump administration has previously tried to condition Department of Justice funding on states changing their sanctuary city policies. Further, this concept is straight out of Project 2025, which specifically calls on a potential future Trump administration to try to coerce states and localities into adopting anti-immigrant policies by withholding federal funds. Republicans use the term sanctuary city the same way that Donald Trump tells stories about immigrants eating cats and dogs. They want their constituents to be afraid of immigrants and to imply that some cities harbor criminals and refuse to comply with federal law. The truth is that in some cities, gaining the trust of immigrant communities is a key component of good policing. The Major Cities Chief Association argues that when local police are viewed as colluding with immigration authorities, they may spur, quote, increased crime against immigrants in the broader community, create a class of silent victims, and eliminate the potential for assistance from immigrants in solving crimes or preventing future terroristic acts, unquote. Following this guidance, many cities across the country have adopted policies that limit contact between local police and federal immigration agencies. However, regardless of how someone may feel about sanctuary jurisdictions and community trust policies, the answer is not a blunt instrument that claws billions of dollars for unrelated projects away from these states and localities. Our constituents send us here to fight for their interests, not to take away funds they depend on. This is a dangerous and overly broad bill. I urge my colleagues to oppose it, and I reserve the balance of my time.